In this video, we're going to work on example 2.6 from your textbook. If you would like to follow along, open the Chapter 2 Classwork.XLSX workbook from My Courses and click on the EX 2.6 1 worksheet tab. In this example, what we're trying to do is a database query. If somebody types in the month and the product, then we want Excel to look up the sales in units. So for example, April and E would return 8544, but June and C would return 2705. We're actually going to do this 4 separate ways. Method 2, we're going to use IFS or IFS, which is only included in the newer versions of Excel. So let's get started. In EX 2.6 method 1, we're going to use VLOOKUP and a nested if statement to do our sales lookup. So click in the green cell, cell I8, and we're going to type our VLOOKUP. So I'm going to type equals VLOOKUP, open the parentheses. The first thing it's going to ask is the lookup value. Because it's a VLOOKUP, we're looking up which row, so our lookup value is going to be the month. So our lookup value is going to be cell I5, the month of April. So click on the blush colored April. Then we're going to type a comma, and then it's going to ask for the table array. So for the table array, the lookup value has to be in the leftmost column. So in this case, we're going to start from column A because it will look in the leftmost column for the lookup value. So I'm going to click in cell A4 and select our entire range A4 to F15. Now I'm going to type a comma. Now it's going to get a little complicated. It wants the column index number. Well, if the product is A, the column is going to be 2. If the product is B, the column is going to be 3. If the product is C, the column is going to be 4. If the product is D, the column is going to be 5. And if the product is E, the column is going to be 6 or F. So what we have to do is a nested if statement at this point to say if it's A, then the column is going to be a 2. So right now, where it says column index number, we're going to type IF. We don't need a second equal sign, just type IF and open the parentheses. So if I6 equals double quote A, double quote, if it's true, we're going to use column 2. If it's false, we're going to test if it's B. So now we need a second nested if, IF, open parentheses, I6 equals double quote B, double quote, comma, then we're going to tell it it's column 3, so just type the number 3. If it's not A or B, we're going to ask if it's C. So comma, if, open parentheses, I6 equals double quote C, double quote, comma, the value of true, it's going to be column 4. We have 2 more. Type another comma. We have 2 more if statements, so we're going to type if, open parentheses, I6 equals double quote D, double quote, comma. If that's true, our column is 5, column E. And finally, for our last if statement, type another comma, IF, open parentheses, if I6 equals double quote E, double quote, comma, the value of true is 6. We can end it here because we're not going to have any other options. It's only going to be A, B, C, D, or E. So we're going to close up our first if statement, that's the red. Then we're going to close off our second if statement. Then we're going to close up our third if statement. Then we're going to close up our fourth if statement. We're at the purple. We're going to close up our fifth if statement. And now, before we close up the VLOOKUP, we're going to type a comma and type the word false to make sure that we get an exact match. And we close it up. We've closed up our VLOOKUP. Notice we have the black parentheses and the black parentheses. So it's a very complicated statement, but we're going to hit enter. And notice we get 8544. If we do April and type C instead of E, notice it changes to 2636. And if we type June and hit enter, we get 2705. So it does look like it actually works. So I'm going to go back to April and E. Alright, now let's try exercise 2.6 using IFS, using ifs instead of nested ifs. It just makes it a little bit easier. So we're going to click on the EX 2.62 worksheet tab. Now we're going to use VLOOKUP and ifs. So I'm going to click in the green cell, cell I8, and I'm going to type equals VLOOKUP, open the parentheses. Because it's a VLOOKUP, my lookup value is going to be the month. If it was an HLOOKUP, I could use the product, but because it's V, it's looking up which row, so our lookup value is going to be the month. So my lookup value is going to be cell I5. I just click on cell I5. Now I type a comma, and we can see that table array is now bolded. So my table array is the range A4 to E15. So I make sure I select that range, and I don't have to worry about the dollar signs because I'm not copying this. Now I'm going to type a comma, and now for the column index number, we're going to use IFS, or ifs. Ifs allows us to just put in multiple conditions. Condition 1, do that if true. Then if it's false, it just moves on to condition 2. So we don't need to keep typing if over and over again. So in the column index number, I'm going to type IFS. And again, if this doesn't work for you, it just means that you have an older version of Excel. Hopefully it will be updated soon. So we have logical test 1 is I6 equal to A. It has to be within the quotes because it's a label. So ifs, open parentheses, click on cell I6 equals open quote A, close quote. Well, if that's true, we take the value from column B, which is column 2. Now we type a comma. Now we go to logical test 2. If logical test is false, it'll move on to logical test 2. So now we just ask if I6 equals double quote B, double quote. And if that statement is true, we want it to be column 3, which is our column C. So we just type the number 3. Now we type a comma, and see we're at logical test 3. So this makes it easier. We don't have to keep typing if over and over and over again. So if I6 equals double quote C, double quote, comma, we're going to use column 4 because C is in column D. Type a comma. Now we're at logical test 4. Does I6 equal double quote D, double quote, comma? If that is true, we're going to put in the number 5 because column D, because product D, is in column E. And finally, we're going to type a comma. Our last test, does I6 equal double quote E, double quote? And in fact, if that's true, type a comma. We're going to use column 6, which is column F. Now we're going to close up our IFS, so it also makes it easier because we don't have to count how many of those parentheses to close. We don't have to close up 5 statements, we're only closing up 1 statement. Now remember, we're still within the VLOOKUP, so we type a comma and then type the word false to make sure that we get an exact match. Close up our VLOOKUP, closing the parentheses, and we hit enter, and we get 8544. And just like we did before, we'll just test it a little bit. So if I change product E to product C, I get 2636. And if I change the month to June, I get 2705. So it does seem to work. I'm going to type April, and then E, and then move on to the third way that we're going to do it, which is a VLOOKUP and a match. So VLOOKUP and match. If in this green sales I just used match, so I told it to match product E in this vector. So if I told it to match the product, if A was in the product, the answer that it would return is 2, because A would be in the second position. But E is here right now, so if I put in a match, then I told it to match I6, and then this particular range or this particular vector, what it would return is 6, because E is the 6th position in this vector. So we're going to click in cell I8, the green cell, and type equals VLOOKUP. Open the parentheses. Once again, because it's a VLOOKUP value, our lookup value has to be in a column because it returns what row it is. So our lookup value is going to be cell I5, which is the word April. Now we're going to type a comma. Our table array is the same table array that we used before, so we're going to select the range A4 to F15, and type a comma. Now for our column index number, we're going to ask it to match the product number to that array in row 3. So after the comma, I'm just going to type the function match and open the parentheses. I'm going to tell it to match the product I6, type a comma. Our lookup array is A3 to F3. We're going to type a comma. Now we're going to type the number 0 for an exact match, because we want to make sure that we get an exact match. And then we're going to close up the parentheses, which closes up the match function. Then we're going to type a comma, and then we're going to type the word false to make sure that we get an exact match for the VLOOKUP. Close up the parentheses for the VLOOKUP, hit enter, and we get 8544, just like we did before. Change the product to C, 2636, change the month to June, 2705. It seems to work. So I'll go back to April and E, and now we're going to move on to the fourth way that we're going to do this, which uses index and match. Now we're going to click on our last worksheet tab, EX 2.64, and in this example we're going to use both index and match. Index tells Excel what row and then column to look for in a range. So if I use index and then I select this particular range, A4 to F15, and I tell it index 3-4, what it will do is it will go down to the third row, so it'll choose March. Remember I said index 3, 4, right after this range. So 3 would be the third row, which would be March, and then it would go 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. So it would pick up 2147 March in C. So what we're going to do is index, and then we're going to use match to tell it first which row to look for. So we're going to match the month to the particular row, and then we're going to match the product to the particular column. So we're going to click in cell I8, and we're going to type equals index and open the parentheses. First it wants an array, and then it wants the row number within the array, and then the column number within the array. So first we're going to tell it the array. So our array is cell A4, so we're going to click on A4 all the way down to F15. Now we're going to type a comma. Now for the row number, we're going to have it match the month to the array which has the months. So I'm going to type match, open the parentheses. My lookup value is going to be the month in blush, cell I5. I'm going to type a comma. My lookup array is going to be A4 to A15. So April, it will return the number 4 because April is the 4th row in this particular range. Then I'm going to type a comma, and then I'm going to type the number 0 to make sure I get an exact match. And then I'm going to close up this particular match function by shift and close parentheses. Now I've got the row number. I'm going to type a comma. Now it's going to ask the column number. So for the column number, I'm going to match I6 to row 3. So after the comma, I'm going to type match again, open the parentheses. My lookup value is going to be the product in peach, I6, going to type a comma. This lookup array is going to be A3 to F3. And now a comma, our match type is 0. We're going to close up the parentheses. After we close up our second match function, we're back at the index function. All we needed was the array, the row number, and the column number. We're done with our index. We close it up, shift, close up our parentheses, hit enter, and for the 4th time we have 8544, and for the 4th time we're going to test it. C 2636 looks good. June 2705 looks good. I'm going to put it back to April and E, and we have now learned how to do a database query 4 different ways.